do not want to miss this, ladies and gentlemen. UFC History! You can only make a first impression once, and in November of 1993, the UFC introduced itself to the world. Before weight classes, before rules, and before Dana White, there was one outstanding question which needed to be answered. Who is the Ultimate Fighting Champion?
One of the questions that came up when I was a young amateur boxer back in Brooklyn, New York was, could a boxer beat a wrestler? It was an eternal sports question.
What would happen if a black belt in karate ran into a black belt from judo? And none of us knew. It was all talk.
That style versus style debate had gone on forever, since as long as martial arts had been around.
A former jiu-jitsu instructor by the name of Mitsui Maeda came to Brazil in the early 1900s.
Maeda taught my uncles the art of jiu-jitsu, and my father was very small, so he couldn't do the techniques that my uncles learned.
So through trial and error, he started modifying those techniques.
He changed little things that would make it easier for a smaller person to be able to do it against a bigger opponent.
My secretary at the time was doing a great job for me, clipping all kinds of articles. And one of the articles that she found was in September 1989 Playboy article called BAD, Bad. It was about this Rorion Gracie and the Gracie family and this whole business about they would take on anybody in a mixed match fight.
I decided to come to the United States with the objective of establishing jiu-jitsu in America. Art, I think, when we opened up this school in Torrance, he was the very first guy who ever showed up.
He and I sat down and we talked, and then I described to him the business plan that became the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Big problem with it, of course, was location. Where do you do it? In my research, I found that Colorado had no state athletic commission, and they had a loophole which permitted bare-knuckle fighting. It was perfect.
There were no weight classes, no time limits, no gloves.
There was only two restrictions, which is no eye gouging and no biting.
I had gotten commitment early on from Rorion that I was going to be the matchmaker and booker. I placed ads in Black Belt Magazine, Inside Kung Fu, Inside Karate. And at one point, I finally said, Rorion, who are you going to put in from Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? He said, I'm going to put Royce in. I said, Royce? He just wasn't the biggest guy.
People have said, Rorion, why didn't you fight in the first UFC?
Because it wouldn't be so impressive if one of my brothers would have beat the guy up.
Putting Royce in there would be a more convincing way to show the effectiveness of the system itself instead of the fighter.
Set against the backdrop of Denver, Colorado, the UFC's first live event featured 8 lethally skilled competitors. Each man who stepped into the octagon that fateful night was a master of their craft and eager to show the world why their discipline was the superior martial art.
In a perfect world, I wouldn't be a fighter. Never had a fight in the street. Not a mean person. So why do you fight? It's because I know what I'm doing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're about to see something that you have never seen before.
The stand-up fighters had no idea what to do on the ground. So it was almost like unfair.
You're probably going to see jiu-jitsu, in my estimation, at its best.
I was sure Royce was going to get his head knocked off his body.
I never imagined that I would be fighting a wrestler and a guy on the floor.
It is no fun being on the bottom.
He just bowed out.
I know Royce was the guy they were highlighting. He was the only guy that I knew that knew anything about submissions. I didn't think he knew anything all that well.
Ken Shamrock thought it was going to be an easy win. He was in great shape, and when we saw him, you were like, my God, that's Captain America.
He knew a lot about, ground fighting, so it was really a test.
He balanced there. Oh, watch this. There's a footlock. Very subtle move, but a very, very effective move.
I remember telling, when I first met Ken Shamrock, watch out for the choke. He said, ain't no 175-pound karate guy gonna choke me.
Ken's going for that leg again.
Although he was well-versed in ground fighting, he was not well-versed in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And Royce got him in a collar choke using the sleeves, and the guy was just, again, lost.
There's the tap.
It looked like you did have supremacy early on, and then suddenly it reversed like lightning.
That's the way submission is.
Have you ever fought someone jiu-jitsu before?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the final match for the Ultimate Fighting Champion. Very good respect.
Fantastic.
Royce just used the right techniques and defeats everyone. I mean, how much better can that be? Like a Cinderella story, you know?
When the final bout had ended, Royce Gracie had emerged from the UFC 1 tournament as the Ultimate Fighting Champion, and he catapulted Gracie Jiu-Jitsu into the public consciousness. It has been 30 years since these first 8 warriors fought it out on the UFC canvas. Without this historic event, the UFC would not be the leader in global combat sports it is today.
I really didn't create the UFC. The UFC created Art Davie. The UFC created Royce Gracie. The UFC really created all of us.
The ultimate, I couldn't do it.